Welcome to the Art of Succession podcast with Barrett Young. Join us as we explore the strategies, stories, and insights that shape the journey of leadership transitions and business success. No matter where you find yourself along the journey, this is the podcast where you'll find the tools to make it happen.
People just became more comfortable with being digitally available. The blog kind of led to more exposure for me.
Welcome back to part 2 of my discussion with Manasa Nadig, international cross-border tax expert with MN Tax and Business Solutions. If you'd like to watch part 1, you can watch that here. Otherwise, let's get back into our discussion. Talk to me about the sale then. Let's get into that. So now, was this a definite epiphany, like a conversation, or just a wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're like, this is what I need to do? How did that come?
Yeah, that tax season was so rough. I think I must have put the most number of clients on extension than I ever did. And
which tax season is this? Last year, 22?
It
filing
was
in 23?
No, it was the 21 filing in 22.
Filing in 22. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago.
Yeah, about 2 years ago. And it was, there's no way that, because you know what, especially I think in our profession, you worry about making mistakes when you're the only person with this kind of volume. And then that tells upon your reputation, and not just the reputation. And if you're the kind of, I think like most accountants and tax advisors are, we are very hard on ourselves. We want the perfect thing, which it should be. Every tax return that goes out has to be perfect because it has to be correct and it has to fulfill all the tax laws. So I was really worried about mistakes, and that's not what I wanted at all, ever. So that was the driver, really, about how am I going to do this versus being insecure about letting go, So the driver was, no, this is not a good idea. And I kind of posted this in a few of the Facebook groups that we are on, with all the different people. And I was specifically looking for somebody who was in Michigan, and I found this really wonderful person who is not very far from where I am actually, but she was very willing to take on these clients, and in fact, her tagline is, "We will meet with you where you are with technology." So that was almost a perfect fit, that word. And it was like
for what you were looking.
Yeah.
I mean, the reasons why they weren't a good fit for you.
Exactly.
They're going to be cared for really well by this other preparer then.
Exactly. And she's an enrolled agent as well. So I did not have to explain who it is. My clients were already, by then they knew what's an enrolled agent and what it meant working with one. So, and she's been amazing. She's taken them over. She's nurtured them, and she and I have formed a good friendship as well. So it's a good fit. In fact, like we did one part of the sale in 22, yes, which was in 23, and we did one more this year where she took over some more clients. So yeah.
Okay. And was there a value put on that, or was it a percentage of fees for a couple of years? How did you guys come up with that number?
So this was more formal, definitely. We came up with, we did the formal agreement, contract, NDA, the non-compete, everything's in there. And it was more of, we put a value. I really actually, I was just so happy to find her. I would have just written a letter to all my clients, say, go see.
Free referral.
Yeah. But then I thought about it, and, there was a lot of what I had already value. I had put
600 tax returns is a lot to do that to.
Yeah,
so.
Right. So then we put a value to it, and that was that. So it was a good old business transaction, where we decided the value and then she paid the retainer, and then depending on how many clients came to see her during tax season. So after the tax season, she came and then she settled the repayment.
Let's talk about now. You're 100% owner in both companies. You, after that first one without K, you've realized I need to find someone to buy this other one. Let's talk about what you've done with M Tax to fully head in that direction, even more so than the prior 5 years as you and Kay are talking about it. I know you've got a podcast. You've been running that for about a year with a co-host, International Money Cafe. So talk to me about that, and then other ways that you've specialized and raised a flag and said, I am your expert in this topic.
Absolutely. I love talking about this. So we're going to go, I guess, backwards here. The International Money Cafe podcast came about after Jane Meetham is my co-host. She and I met on this forum, which is run by someone else who caters only to financial planning in a cross-border space. So, so we really didn't meet in real life. By met, I mean like online. And then we started chatting, and we realized that we were talking a lot about case studies for different clients, because she was coming from the financial planning aspect of it, and I was coming from the compliance aspect of it, and we had a lot to share. So, so we decided to start a podcast because, everybody has a podcast, one. And second, we really thought that we had good value to offer in that field where, there's literally our website tagline is we filter out the noise. And that's what happens in, I guess, in many different niches where there's a lot of extraneous information on the web, and people are just sort of trying to make things their own, and there's not much understanding of the complexity behind it. So we really wanted to, one, get people to understand what they need to do, but also let them know that it's not as simple as they think it is on the one hand, but then we are here on the other hand. But the podcast is not purely a marketing thing for either of us. It's also a way of sharing knowledge. And to that point, my blog, which I started writing, and the blog is called The Buzz About Taxes. And I started writing my blog in 2013 when I realized the same thing, that there was almost no to very little knowledge in the lay person's arena, where they could say, oh, we need to do this if we have cross-border or foreign assets. So I started to write that, and I started to market it, not market really, talk about it in social media. And I was on Twitter for a long time at that point, and now I'm not at all, but I was back then. And Twitter then had a hashtag called Tax Twitter, which was where all of us tax nerds would get together, and it really exposed me to a lot of professionals in the tax field. And that's where I again met people who needed to have somebody that they could rely on, refer people to them and say, she knows what she's doing. If you have a foreign asset compliance requirement, she's the person to go to. So that's how it sort of happened, that the blog kind of led to more exposure for me in terms of someone who was a reliable person. And that brought in referrals from other financial planners, from other CPAs such as yourself, and word gets around. And I know that you were referred to me by a CPA friend or a colleague of yours. So that's how I started to build it out. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's hard for us to realize when we start to think about specializing is the marketing when you start to specialize is no longer like business to consumer directly, or doesn't need to be. There's so much value there from business to business of I could actually have a peer that's like, I've done one of these before. I never want to touch it again, but I want to send clients to somebody who's going to be able to take care of them in this specialty area or just entirely. I think a lot of professionals need to look at that. I'm doing it like how I've got a lot of CPAs that are reaching out to me about 754 elections and stuff around succession planning. I'm like,
Yeah,
I never even thought about that before. So,
exactly. You know what? I wouldn't touch a merger of any acquisition. My God, no.
yeah.
So yeah.
You've got all these external sources. You've got a blog. You've got a podcast. How do you handle that education piece other than like go listen to my blog, go listen to 30 episodes of my podcast? How do you get through to a consumer or maybe just to another CPA or another tax preparer? This is not something that you should be doing yourself. Because I know like Department of Labor, the number one, threat against pension audits, to get really nerdy here, is people that only do 5,500. Like they only prepare one of those forms a year. And it's trying to convince them, no, that you could actually get in trouble with this and you probably would be better off just referring this away. How do you do that without terrifying them or without saying you need to go read every single thing I've ever written about this? I want to hear your thoughts on this.
You just landed on the one thing that plagues me to this day, is to find a way to tell people that this is, like you said, it's not something that they should be doing if they are not familiar with this, but at the same time, not be immobilized to a point where you can't even, talk to your client as to, yes, there is a requirement that you have this. So it kind of, that's what happens in I think, like to your point earlier, in any niche is to convey the complexity of that niche, but especially in the foreign space, because the penalties of non-compliance are so harsh. I mean, if you think about it, it's just changed like literally a couple of weeks ago. But earlier than that, if you got an inheritance from a non-US person of more than $100,000, and believe me, this $100,000 limit has not been changed for inflation like in forever, ever since this rule was made. So you're looking at this, and a person does get this, they don't report it, the money lands in their US bank account, right? And now, because there is a deposit of more than $100,000 into a person's US bank account, that then goes back and I suppose somehow gets reported to the IRS. And now this person gets a letter from the IRS asking for 25% of what that gift/inheritance was. That's formidable, you know? And I think people should be worried that when they do not advise their clients on what exactly they need to do. In fact, it's alarming as to how many professionals are out there who actually work with people in the cross-border space on a regular basis. Now, very recently, I had a client who came in because they are working with an attorney who's an immigration attorney who's filing for their EB-5 visa. And an EB-5 visa is specifically a visa where a foreign person brings in a certain amount of money and invests it in American businesses, and they are given a visa, and then that leads to a green card. So if you're in that space, you as the professional needs to know that now your clients are going to be getting a lot of money from overseas, because guess what? The minimum amount to put into these businesses to get your EB-5 visa is $500,000. So it's that's what, is a place where I have to tell the professional that, hey, you need to know that this is a requirement. You need to declare any gifts or inheritances over $100,000. It's not a tax requirement. It's a one-time reporting compliance, and that's it. But there is a cross kind of of news where that is missed. So either people think it's taxable, or they think it's not taxable and therefore not reportable. So that's where it becomes an issue, so to speak, as you have to be able to convey to people that there is complexity. There are very huge consequences of non-compliance in terms of real money, because guess what? Your money may be still sitting back in the country where you got it. So, but you're paying real money to the IRS in US dollars, maybe money you don't have. And that becomes an issue. So I think that is sort of now people know more, and that's hopefully I contributed in what way to that, in raising awareness to the fact that this is what it is. It has consequences. Don't let your life get to that place where you're trying to find money to pay the IRS. Be proactive about these things, and every blog post of mine goes out with this tagline: is don't DIY this. Talk to a tax professional who is experienced in this area. So I don't know. I hope that answered your question. I'm sorry you didn't made it so
did.
morbid.
No, I'm hearing this conversation, and there's really, there's a need to niche even further into certain continents or certain. Do you specialize in all foreign income, or do you have a framework for how you choose which countries you're going to be involved in, and assess whether or not to bring in new ones along the way?
That's a great question, Barrett. Yes. In fact, you're 100% right. There's like so many countries. There are tax treaties with so many countries. Then there are what are called totalization agreements, which are actually treaties focused on social security, income, and taxes. And there are estate and gift tax treaties with some countries. So yes, you get to a point where just because of the way the referrals come in, you're working more and more with people from some countries and not others. So you get to a comfort level where right now I can say, yes, of course, India, which is basically, because that's where I'm from. I have a large taxpayer base from there, either people who live in India or who are from India who are here in the US. And UK, Germany, and then some other countries. You do get to a stage where you feel that, oh, if there is another tax professional, maybe who knows more about, let's say, some South American country that I'm absolutely not familiar with, then I know other professionals who are focused on the Latin American countries that I can say, hey, you know what? Let me connect you to this person. They really know the ins and outs of this. And because you need to understand the other countries' tax requirements as well to a certain degree. Like, for example, UK has these domiciled and non-domiciled, although they're just changing it and they're in the process of changing it. They used to have this thing for inheritance tax or estate tax that you need to take into account to decide what you want to do. So it does kind of get super niche at some point, but right now where I am at is, yes, I know more about like maybe 4 or 5 countries, but that doesn't mean that if you were from, let's say, I don't know. I'm just throwing this out of the air because I just got this client who is in New Zealand. And, depending on what their requirements are, I might still be able to take them on. Or I might just say, hey, you know what? You're better off just working with somebody who is really niche down in New Zealand. So that's how it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we started working with you, our mutual client has a Nepal requirement, and you were like, I don't do Nepal, but it was similar enough for you at the time that it was like, we can figure this out and make this work. So, yeah, I totally get it. I think that's what business owners need to realize. When you start to specialize in something, there's multiple layers of specialization that you can get down to. You'll never get to the one that's really down, high value, very rare, ever happening if all you do is say, oh, we don't specialize, we just stay up here. But like, succession planning, I got into business valuation. I'm like, that mergers and acquisitions is so different than traditional small business, kind of familial planning and everything like that. You have divorce, you have estate planning. There's all these different avenues you go down. Once you finally say we're going to specialize, you have to say, okay, how specialized?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I love it though. It's creative. You get into such more interesting situations than you would if you were just somebody that I do a foreign citizen. I have a foreign, totally blanking on it right now, a foreign income exclusion client. It's like, well, okay, that's very generalist. I can't get into any details or any specifics on that. Versus you, who's like, okay, well, that's an entry level. And then we get very deep on all this stuff. So, yeah, I love it. All right. So, we could keep going for forever. We're already at our time. Was there anything we didn't cover that you wanted to add, Asa, before we move on to the lightning round?
No, this has been great. Thank you so much for having me, Barrett. It's always nice to talk to you, of course. We have so much to share, and it's always great to know that you're doing well. And, I'm been listening to all your podcast episodes, especially preparing for this one. So it was
Thank you so much.
And so wealth of information there.
All right. We're going to do the lightning round then. Are you ready for this one?
Yes.
All right. Coffee or tea, and how do you like it?
Chai. And my family tease me. They say mine is like the kitchen sink chai because I put like every spice that I can get a hold of into it. And I make it the old fashioned way: boiled water, tea leaves, spices, milk, and that's how I drink it. The only exception I've recently started to make is it's now vegan because I use almond milk.
Do you like pie or cake, and do you have a specific kind you prefer?
Chocolate cake, gooier the better, always.
Chocolate icing also?
Yes, chocolate icing with
chocolate all the way across.
Yes.
All right. What's a common belief among entrepreneurs that you would want to challenge?
The common belief among entrepreneurs, the I can do it all kind of mindset, because I think I was also there at some point, but lately I've realized that I can't. And I don't even want to be proud of the fact that I'm wearing all these hats. I really, really want to delegate, and I just think that the sooner you accept that, the better it is for you. In fact, I would say just spend the money to be able to delegate, even if you're not making any, because then you can actually focus on how to make your money and grow your business.
Yeah, it's funny. We want to be entrepreneurs because we want to be in charge. We want to be in control of everything. And then we find out very quick being in control of everything is not freedom. It's not all it's cracked up to be.
No.
And so there is a place for trusting people with what they're very good at doing.
Yeah.
And oversight, but not saying I have to micromanage that. I have to make every decision.
Absolutely.
It's do you have a favorite holiday and why?
I like Diwali because Diwali is something, it's very special. And, my children, my family, it just brings everybody together. And I'm so glad that it's being recognized as one of the Hindu festivals, and it's actually celebrated in the US as well. So that's one, I just love it. It just brings back so much nostalgia and memories.
Great. Any specific tradition around Diwali that you really love?
We so everybody's trying to be healthy now, but we make a lot of sweets at home, the really traditional Diwali sweets. And we have a group of friends. They all do that, and then we exchange it. We exchange boxes of sweets. And, my daughter, she just really got into it at a young age. And now it's the thing that we do together. We look up recipes, and we're making these sweets, and it's going out to our friends' houses, and they go out and distribute it. So that's one thing that I just love that. And the fact that the house is all lit up, which is, what is Diwali about. So yes.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing that. Do you consider yourself a morning person or a night person? And do you have a favorite routine?
I am a morning person. And because I'm a morning person, I cannot be a night person. I have to be in bed by 9 o'clock. Otherwise, I'm hangry and cranky, is what I'm told. So, my favorite routine, I wake up in the morning, and over the past 6 months, actually, I always used to do about 20 minutes of yoga and meditation after that. But lately I actually wake up and I go to the gym, and I've been adding like weight training and cardio and all of that. So that's my favorite routine now. Like James Clear says, you have to become the person. It's not just a habit that you have to acquire. So
Right, the systems that get you there.
yes, yes.
All right. What is one thing you can think of that you would want your successor to remember you for?
Oh boy. Yeah, this one I had to sort of think about, Barrett, because, I feel like I'm still in the process of like settling myself into the role of a successor. So I guess that's a good way to think about it, right? Like what it is that, you know, I think I would like my successor, one, to be thinking about the way I did business, the efficiency part of it. And also when they interact with the clients, the clients have a not just a good opinion about me, but more of, the that they were taken care of in a good way, and they didn't have to worry about, what was being done with their tax returns. So uh, maybe those are the things. Maybe more will come to me later as I transition into a role of where I get to, I'm ready to, have somebody take over my entire firm. But right now, that was my goal when I was selling a part of my practice. So And also, yes, like I said, the tax returns were done accurately would be one thing. Yes, yes.
Yeah, but you wanted them to feel like they were taken care of, the same as if you had been the one doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get it. Where are you finding creativity right now?
My creativity is of course, I write my tax blog, but because it's a tax blog, it just cannot be creative. So I try to work around it in the marketing aspect of it. The little posts I do on Instagram and what I post on for the podcast on Instagram or LinkedIn, all the little images that we put together. That's where it comes from, and yeah, that's I guess very focused on the business aspect of it. Like personally, I write just random thoughts that come to me that are not tax related, thankfully. Uh, and I love listening to music, and I also sing sometimes. So that's my creative part of it.
What do you have? What do you have coming up this next year that's got you really excited, besides tax season?
Does anybody get excited about tax season? Other than the fact,
I know you do. I do. I'm not going to be afraid to admit it.
yeah,
There's a small part of us that gets excited about game time.
yeah,
So.
yeah. If you look at it that way, yes, I agree. Uh, yeah, I think I'm excited about a few things. Like we were talking about earlier before we started recording. There's the new software that I want to experiment with to make all the processes in the business better, and not try to have a shiny object syndrome. And that's one thing I'm excited about. Another one is, hopefully find a good team to help me out so I can delegate more, and also train people, in this area of taxes. So those are a few things, Barrett.
Okay, great. So you are looking to hire in 2025, you think?
I'm hoping if I can find the right people who, you know, you come to that aspect. I'm sure even you have had that same issue where like you were saying actually before this, was you have to find somebody who can do the work accurately, but they may not be able to do it and understand it at the level that you can because you have that experience, but they don't. But at the same time, there should be the willingness to work and learn, which that is something that's always a challenge.
And where can people go to find out more about you?
Definitely LinkedIn. I'm there a lot, and my website, mntaxbiz.com, and also I'm on Instagram. I share thoughts on life in general, business, something funny or quirky. So I do that. So whatever is your jam, you can find me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn though.
And then
Sorry.
where's your preferred place to send people for the podcast?
Podcast, please go to the imcafe.com. It's theimcafe.com. And they'll be also on Spotify and Apple if those are your platforms. And we are also on many other platforms, actually, and on YouTube. So, yes.
All right. Yeah. You guys have a special website, so we'll make sure to link that up too down in the notes. But
thank you.
I want to thank you so much for your time and for the interview. And it's been great getting to know you a little bit better. So thank you so much.
Of course, Barrett. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
All right. I will talk to you later.
Sure. Bye.
I hope that you've enjoyed my discussion with Manasa Nadig. We have new episodes twice a month, interviewing business owners with their own succession stories. If you'd like to be a guest on the Art of Succession, our link is down in the description below. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with others, and I want to thank you for watching the Art of Succession.